Hello everyone, it is the Redmen Originals Podcast. I'm Paul Machin, Chris Pajak, Chloe Bloxham and Dan Clubb all in the studio. Chloe didn't get the black t-shirt and shorts memo today.
No.
Far too fabulous for the Redmen Originals Podcast, but or maybe we're just not fabulous enough.
I think you all look great. I just think, I've gone all out, and I don't know why, because there's no footy, but I have.
Maybe that's why.
Maybe.
Yeah. You've had
Someone
a few days
had to be
off the footy,
entertaining. Yeah.
and you've just gone, yeah.
No, I literally bought new shoes on Saturday and had
An outfit to go with them.
Yeah, I had to get an outfit to go with them.
Smart.
Thank you.
Smart indeed. Right, we're going to be talking about the international break fume stories, because we thought we'd avoid it at Liverpool, went into the international break on a high with a win.
That'd be ridiculous.
Oh, no, absolutely not. We're going to be coming through all of the things that have set the internet aflame from a Liverpool perspective over the last week or so. In part two, we're going to be looking at the next run of games once the footy returns as well. But a couple of things before we dive into that. First of all, Dan kipped on the cop.
I did, indeed. I slept on the cop on Saturday night. It was a surreal experience. It was a really... it was a nice experience, actually, in a way. It didn't sleep much. I say kipped at about 2.5 hours worth of actual sleep on the concrete in the aisle in one of the rows there. Yeah, but it was great. It was awful. I think row 5, block 103. So I literally, as you come into the cop, first left, straight up. Yeah, literally pretty much the first place I found, essentially, with loads of other people around me, obviously. But yeah, it was a great experience. Yeah, Chris Kirkland was there, obviously LFC Foundation as well, and for our charity of the month, Liverpool Homeless Football Club as well. So yeah, it was brilliant, to be honest with you. Like I say, waking up inside Anfield, and this was like the first thing I literally sat bolt upright, and the first thing I seen was the pitch and like the stadium. It was immense, to be honest with you, but all for a good cause, more importantly. So yeah, made up for it last night in terms of sleep though, because I was a shell of a man yesterday. We all know how much I love my sleep here, and lights out at like 11:30 inside Anfield. It was like 3.5 hours after my usual bedtime. So yeah, I was broken yesterday.
Guys, can you just shush? Everyone just shush. Stop playing that guitar, lads. I'm trying to go to sleep. It's past my bedtime.
Yeah, it was a bit like that. But yeah, it was boss. And yeah, massively appreciate everyone who was there. And a lot of money raised as well. 60 odd grand so far raised. Wow. So yeah, really good stuff.
It's pretty amazing. I did see it come through, and I just thought I couldn't. I mean, like, not the charity side of things, but I couldn't think of anything. I'm not a camping fan at the best of times, but no.
Spiders, absolutely not. No.
It was quite cold as well. Surprisingly
Believe
cold.
it or not, well, outside in England.
Everyone's like moaning or complaining, including myself, nights previous, how swelteringly hot it was in bed every single night. And then I'm telling you now, you get out there at 2:30 in the morning, it's less hot at that point. Like,
really, it's less hot outside than in your bed, in your house that is insulated and made to keep the heat in.
Loads less hot, though.
Loads less hot.
Loads less hot, yeah. Bitterly cold still.
Great information to have from that. No, very good, mate.
Because I was thinking of just giving up the house.
Oh, was you? No, don't. No, I forewarning, don't do that.
Save a few bob. I'd have been tempted to go and like lie by my seat. I don't think I'd have been able to resist the temptation. Did people stay close together to like?
Yeah, they did really. It was all sort of. Yeah, it was a bit like that. So obviously there's loads of different conversations. Seeing Courtney and Dom, obviously we know really well. Like I said, Chris Kirkland was there. Everyone kind of stuck together within 10, 12 rows of each other all the way along, which was quite nice, I guess. But Chris Kirkland did say when he used to go to Anfield as a kid. I think he sat on row 16. He went to his seat anyway with his wife, and that was quite a nice touch. But yeah, nobody really sort of ventured any higher than row 20, I guess. I think we all kind of stayed down low, which might have changed had it have rained. I think everybody would have been very much in a safe standing at the top by that point. But yeah, everyone stuck together. Really nice atmosphere, loads of boss conversations, like I say, loads of really good people. So yeah, it's nice.
I reckon I'd have been fine stood up at a bar, Paul, because you've seen that before.
Yeah. Am I all right to get absolutely arseholed before I go to sleep? Is that fine? Is that part of the rules?
Because I will fall asleep anywhere when I'm drunk. And I've fallen asleep at bars in places
all
in
the people
town.
who
So yeah, I reckon I could fall asleep.
Chris Pajak's arse on the cop. Passed out face down. Cool, yeah. I reckon like at the back of the cop it'd be hottest, I reckon. You know what I mean? You're most enclosed.
Definitely is hotter back there. Did you see if they've done any more work to the Annie Upper?
I saw.
It looked like more seats were in situ from some of the photos I saw.
I thought that as well. So obviously I got there at 7:30 at night, so it was still relatively light, and then of course in the morning. But I thought there was more seats, more than anything. Obviously you couldn't see loads of detail, and I know obviously they started work back end last week. I didn't think they would get to work so quickly, because I thought they'd be sort of doing all the health and safety from the previous contractors before they could do anything. But I got the impression from afar and literally the opposite end of the ground that there was more done to it, yeah. So it remains to be seen. I'm actually speaking to Dave Powell tomorrow, who will probably know more than me on that, to be honest with you. So yeah, but yeah, it did look like say, they were making some more progress on it, yeah.
About time. I just want me safe standing bar in front of me seat. That's all I'm.
How low down are you?
It's 2 rows behind me, where
okay?
they got up to, and they obviously just decided to not bother anymore. Apparently in the new year they're going to do that. Anyway, it's another thing for another time. Before we get on to the fume stories, just another good story. Liverpool women moving into Melwood this week. I'm made up with this, really am. Obviously, because we were there when Carragher and Fowler took it over. They did the press conference. We were glad that something was being done with it. It was going to be turned into like a housing estate or whatever, but it does feel right. It feels like, again, it's another one of those decisions that, like, not that anyone likes to sit here and give credit to the ownership group or whatever, but like, it was a bad decision to let Melwood go when the Liverpool women's team didn't have a decent training facility within the city limits. So actually, to be able to hold on to it, to get it back, and to be able to use it for that feels about right.
Yeah, it does in some ways. I'll be honest, that kind of a bit like, well, why the heck did they not think about this when they were letting it go? And to be honest, why didn't they think about this when they were building Kirby? You know, it feels like quite short-sighted by the club, and they're just making up for it, whereas the correct decision should have been made a few years ago. So it's good, obviously, that they've done this, that they've swallowed their pride, I suppose, and brought it back, and obviously they're doing it up right this time around. But I do think it was really poor planning by Liverpool to even get into that situation.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I think it's one of those, it came a bit too soon, because they just clearly didn't give a shit about the women's team for a number of years, and it was only, I think it's 2 years ago now, I remember speaking to Andy Kelly about this, and he obviously is important there, and he had a word about like how they were looking to start to put investments in, and since they've done that, Liverpool have got promotion and they've held their own, and it looks like they're building from it. But you're right, the decision should have been taken 5 years ago, but instead, I mean, that was like anything, Chloe, it's kind of like a better late than never. And also, it was nice, just on a nice tone. That video of them being like clapped into Melwood was a nice, yeah, it's stupid, but it's a nice touch.
Yeah, it's historical. It's Liverpool history, that, and for the women to have a part of that history now, it's brilliant to see. There was even, a couple of years ago, Liverpool women were the only team that had women on the end. Everyone else was just West Ham, Leicester City. Liverpool was Liverpool women. They've now got rid of that as well. So it seems like we're one big family again. And yeah, it was ludicrous that they didn't think of this to begin with. But it's now great to see that the women are getting the facilities, getting the support. Hopefully they'll get the investment and they can go on to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. Good stuff. Right, international break fume stories. I mean, we've got to start with the one, really. Liverpool go into the break.
There was nothing happened last week, was there?
No. And then Jordan Henderson and presumably his PR team decided that it was the perfect moment to speak out about his move to Saudi. I know you guys obviously would have talked all about it a lot last week. I was off ill last week, so I didn't get to really talk too much about it. Regardless of opinions on the interview in and of itself and the intentions behind it, Dan, there's no escaping that it's just been a huge PR own goal. Because I'll be honest, I didn't think the interview was that bad, and by that what I mean is there was no possible answer that was going to totally vindicate the decision that he took. So I was aware of that. And so for me, it was all about how he went about doing it and the things that he did. So I thought, I thought getting 2 journos that weren't on his side was a good idea. I thought the idea of putting the whole transcript out was a good idea. He's got nothing to hide. He's just going to go and speak, his side of things. I thought that was all fine, but it didn't bother me when I read it. I read it independently, and I had no one around me, and thought, okay, Sam, well, it doesn't stop me being disappointed in his decision. Doesn't make me think any less of him. Doesn't make me feel any better. And kind of fine, move on. I thought it was brave's not the right word, but I thought at least he didn't hide behind a mad PR machine for it. But it's when you then start to see the reaction, and it was the amount of people whose opinion I really do respect, who were absolutely either apoplectic with it or were really scathing of it and whatever. And that's where it goes back to the PR thing. Regardless of the intentions, there's not been any positivity that seems to have come off the back of it.
No, none whatsoever. It was an absolute pile-on, quite frankly. After the first part was released earlier on in the day, and nobody really foresaw the part 2 coming, and then David Ornstein, like later on that day, it was like a 9-5 job, 9 o'clock in the morning, I'll have that. Oh, by the way, just wait to see what I've got later, and he drops that in, and even more come out of it. And it was, I don't think he comes out of it particularly well. Now, I take your point on sort of not changing your opinion positively or negatively after on the back of it. But for me, I think some of the lines from it, I don't know. I thought more of Jordan Henderson. I thought he'd be a little bit smarter than that to say a couple of the bits that he did. And you're right to mention the fact it's a transcript, because I think sort of context-wise, that doesn't do any favours because there is no context to it. It's interesting. I heard Adam Crafton speaking about it over the weekend, actually, and he said essentially that. He said it was a quite... there's a lot of warmth in the room, and the narrative that came out of it doesn't reflect well because of the fact that it's a transcript. So maybe in hindsight they might have liked to have done it differently, because
they should have videoed it and put the whole thing out.
Because he said the room actually felt a lot kinder than the transcript read. There's no, like I say, you can't make it sound any better than it is because of the way it's written out, and people just took it for what it was, rightly or wrongly. And a lot of people have been very, very critical of it. Very critical of it. And I get it, I do. I mean, I've said it before, we're not in the certain quarters and the certain groups of people that would take huge offence to the things that he's done, the decisions he's made and what he's done in the past. So it's hard for me to put myself in those shoes. But I knew he had to come out and speak at some point. He had to, because he couldn't just go away and this all be forgotten about. The fact he was about to play for England again is probably what sort of meant that this has come out now. Mm-hmm. But I must admit, I'll be dead honest, I thought when he did, I thought it would be a lot better than that. I think he's come out of it really, really poorly. I just do.
Well,
shocking. I don't know who's advised them to do that. I really don't. It was all going away. And I'm one of the people who would have wanted it to not go away. But it was just settling. The dust was settling. People had forgot about it. And then you come out and you just stir the pot again. You bring it all up again. You open the wounds again. And some of the quotes just didn't help him. I mean, there was that one where, I'm sorry that you feel that way. No, not I'm sorry that I have offended you. No, I'm sorry that you feel that way. There was a load of things that just didn't come out. And then the second part came out and it was like, I never felt loved at Liverpool, and Jurgen Klopp clearly is happy with the team he's got because that's what he said. So he's got to be happy with the people that go out. And I was like, you've dug yourself a hole. I don't know why you've asked for this second part to come out, but you're now attacking the manager. And yeah, I sat there flabbergasted reading some of the stuff because it was just, okay, it was like he was saying, I don't think I should deserve a medal for doing this, but I also I could have hid. And I was like, no, so what? You've came out and said something, but you've just lied. It's clearly about money. Someone, I think it was... Matt Ladson wrote a thing the other day, and actually this morning I saw it, and it's Henderson's quote, and Henderson was saying, I wanted an exciting challenge. He played his last game in front of 2,800 spectators. You tell me what is exciting about that. You were Liverpool captain, playing inside Anfield, a fortress every week, playing in Europe. You were, the main man for Liverpool, and now you're playing in a place that no one knows where you are, see, in front of 2,000 spectators. It just, I don't know who advised him to do it, but it was an absolute shit show, if I'm being honest. He didn't come out good of it, and to be honest, I didn't think I could lose any more respect for him, and I did. So, yeah.
Nothing really changed for me. I wasn't any more disappointed after having read that interview than I was when he left originally, because I think it was all about controlling the narrative. I think Dan's right. It probably would have been asked to him, maybe in a mix-o, maybe after a game, maybe when he's not had time to compose his thoughts, and it could have been a lot worse if he'd just answered off the top of his head. He's clearly thought about it. He's invited someone from the LGBTQ Q Plus community in to do the interview with him and Adam Grafton, which I think is really a good thing. He's tried to answer, and I said this on the news show. I think he thinks it's his truth, and that's fine. Like, I think he believes it. I don't think he is going out there intentionally lying to people. I just think he's wrong. You know what I mean? I think he's made this sort of narrative about the reasons why he wants to go, and sometimes we as human beings do that to enforce why we've made a decision, and it's not actually, you know what I mean? Yeah. So I think it was a little bit silly. I never read it actually as they agreed to put it out as a transcript. I read that as the authors decided to put it out as a transcript so everybody could see everything. I don't know, I might be completely wrong on that. I think it would have been much better as a video. I think he would have been able to get himself across a lot better than just in black and white, because the problem with the black and white is we all went in with our preconceived ideas of what Jordan Henderson did it for. Yeah. And it only enforced us. And there was no chance for him to change our opinions on that, because we went in and read something, and rightly or wrongly, every one of us pushed it into one side and went, well, that fits perfectly with the narrative of you left because of the money and you're just trying to hide it. So I don't think it did him any favours. I think it was a bit misguided.
I genuinely got the idea. I think he thought, and again, it's wrong ultimately, because there was no answering the criticisms. There's no answering going for being like a positive supporter of the LGBTQ plus community to then moving to a country that doesn't have those kind of morals or literal rights. There was no way he was going to say something make everyone go, oh right, okay, oh you put it that way, because he's not going to come out and say, I'm now going to be an avid campaigner for this. It's not you can't be. I mean, it's not allowed. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things. It was just the PR thing. I can, and this is the thing. I don't know Jordan Henderson of recent footballers to have played for Liverpool. I've probably had slightly more conversations with him. I think it's like Jamie Carragher, him, and then weirdly Jurgen Klopp. You know what I mean? In terms of people I've spent time with, which is a minute fraction. But I always got a sense of him as a person. We did a documentary on him, the glowing references from all kinds of people and all kinds of walks of life on him. So yeah, I think he made a bad decision, but I don't think it made him a bad guy, which is the worst thing about it. I think the way that the anger towards him, and then the way in which it was done, because again, it stripped away the humanity. He's a real person, and I don't know. I don't think he ever could have come out and gone, it's just for the money, because I genuinely don't think he ultimately totally believes that in and of himself. We think, everyone goes, it's got to be for the money, and I'm not saying, and I think he maybe downplayed the money a bit, maybe a little bit too much. I think maybe we'd have been comfort to say, hey, the money was fabulous, so let's not take that off the table as a reason. But the thing that also then happened was they then put that FSG bit out, and I think that was meant to be Jordan Henderson's part in like, the club's in good hands, don't worry, but also forgetting that no one wants to hear that the club's in good hands. Everyone fucking hates the owners, so everyone wanted to. It probably would have been better off going, FSG forced me out, and everyone would have gone, well, we hate FSG more than we hate all these other things.
I thought that he'd gone back to them and gone, you've absolutely done me a kipper here, you need to put something else out. And put pressure on them, or Henderson's people put pressure on them.
But then what carried through was everyone was dead angry with the interview, and then listen, instead of it, what that piece goes, well, listen, I think Liverpool's owners are good owners of the club. I think they've made mistakes, but they generally do well. I think Jurgen Klopp knows what he's doing, and I think he's, and they've bought a good squad, and I think he was trying to say, I've left Liverpool in pretty good hands, I think, for the future. But it was then reading tone in text of him going, well, Jurgen's made the decisions of who comes in and who goes out, and he's clearly happy with that. Which everyone went, just Jordan going, well, doesn't want me, but he wants all these other lads. It was just a fucking mess. And again, it sounds daft to feel sorry for a multi-millionaire who's made a decision to go and make even more multis of millions. But I did feel like, again, it's him that's done this to himself by making that decision. You can't go there, and you can't be perceived to be a good person in everyone's eyes if you go and take certain pathways in life.
Everyone is allowed to feel how they feel, especially with him coming out and going above and beyond, and it came across in the thing that he thought he was above everyone because he did that at one point. But there's no point in doing that at one point and then going to a country in which those people literally don't have rights.
I just think the standing up for the LGBT community was just badly over fucking played, and not that he doesn't believe in it, but I said this when we were first talking about it. It should just be normal. His opinion should be a normal level of opinion across society, but it sticks out like a sore thumb when he's the only captain in the Premier League who's made a big deal about this. Of all the millions of footballers or multi-millionaire footballers who've gone there, no one else can dig through. No one else can go to Gerrard and go, oh, hang on a second, no one's going to Bobby Firmino or Fabinho or Ronaldo or Benzema or Sadio and go and hang about, because they haven't stepped up and said what should be, let's be honest, a perfectly normal thing. He's not like he's led Pride. He's not like he's gone, right, I'm now the de facto leader of the Liverpool Pride movement, and I'm going to be the one leading the parade. He's just, he's been done by how horrendous the fucking coverages of this stuff in this country and in around the sport, and that's where I think a lot of the disappointment comes from, to lose someone so vocal. Yeah. But I said this at the time, Jordan Henderson shouldn't be the standout voice for this. The problem we've got now is that I can't see how many people who's going to come up and put their head above the parapet on this now, because why you'd have to be really, really brave, I think, now to come out and do it, which is worse for it.
The thing I got when reading it was, I was disappointed in it, of course. I was disappointed when he left. When it all came out, I thought, surely not really. From the type of person that Jordan Henderson's been perceived about what he's done, surely he wouldn't do this. He's then done it, but it was when I went on Twitter and it was quotes of him turning around and saying, if I believe in, people's being able to love whoever they love, I also need to respect other people's culture. And people were saying, no, other people's culture, that's them wanting me dead. That's me not having any rights. That is me being murdered. But this goes back to the point, though. That is the difference.
We're then in the situation where Jordan Henderson now has to be the man to change an entire nation's,
he was never ever going to do that.
No, exactly. But that's what I mean. That's why I was less disappointed, because he's just a fella, isn't he?
People did think that, I remember at the time when he left, there was a lot of core supporters who, you can still support Jordan Henderson, that's up to you, whatever. But there was a lot of them people thinking, why don't you think he's just taking it because he believes that he can do some movement over there? And I'm like, you must be the most naive, stupid people in the world, because what do you think Jordan Henderson is going to do over there in movement for the LGBTQ plus community? He's one man. He'd be murdered before he was allowed to do any of that. What are you talking about? And it also didn't help but that is Instagram that he put on before going on international duty was talking about the kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and everyone translated it, was like, oh good God, how much is he earning for that? And then he comes out and said he didn't earn anything in the thing for the promotional tweets or anything. So yeah, it was just a bit of a mess for him.
Yeah, I do. It's just a bit fucking stupid, as I say. It's a shame that we're in a world where we've got to stop. For me, we just got to stop making role models of footballers. Because there's no, you're going to end up disappointed with a footballer as a role model ultimately, because they're just lads who are good at kicking a ball around. It's nice when their opinions and thoughts and feelings align with ours, but ultimately he's just a person who's got a limited shelf life of a career, and he's done this. And again, I don't, as exactly Chris said, I don't really feel any less or more about him one way or the other. I was kind of prepared to let it get off. He had to kind of come out and talk about it, I guess, at some point. But this is the problem with it. It's like, and this goes back to it, I believe in his general level of character, that he felt the need to, because he wanted, it's, no one else has really felt the need to do this. No one else has come out to justify, no one's asked any of these other players, why have you decided to do all these things? He kind of wanted to explain in the hope that being as open and honest, people might have some sort of, understanding for why he did it. But there was no. What more understanding was there to have? He's gone to play in a fucking league in front of no fans. You know, was there no? Maybe was there just no other offer on the table? Was there no other exciting offer on the table?
He kind of alluded to that as well, didn't he? To be fair, in the article and stuff. Like, I mean, listen, if you're first to go and do something, then I can understand that there might be an idea of how you believe you're going to build this country's league up, as in your Cristiano Ronaldo. You could understand that, and everybody following, and then if you are of that type of person that needs that ego boost, then you would look around if you're Cristiano Ronaldo and go, look who's followed me over here, look what I've built. But when you're the 35th player or whatever it is to go, what have you really done? Just been a sheep. More than anything. You're not. I don't think you can really look at that and go, well, I really helped build that. It's like, no, you just followed everybody else.
The only counterpoint, because you're right, is that I think, again, probably said this time, was like, he probably just didn't expect to get a call. He probably didn't think he was on a radar for that. And then actually, as much as, you're right, you're not like a front runner of it. I mean, look, he might be in the second class, I guess, of people who've gone across there. But you know, we all expected, when we all said who's going to get the call from Saudi this summer, we all went Thiago. None of us really went Fabinho, but we'd have put Fabinho above Henderson. We probably would have listed Henderson really low down, and I reckon he probably would have too. So maybe there's just something to that, and it goes back to that the being wanted thing, which I think again was over-egged and lacking tone. Steven Gerrard got off and went to the MLS because he didn't feel like Brendan Rodgers was bending over backwards to have him stay at the football club a little bit more. Footballers are a bit like that, ultimately. You know what I mean? They've got this shelf life, and if someone really shows them a bunch of love, it's why you end up with money and love uptake footballers to mad places. It just genuinely will. But yeah, anyway, disappointing.
What do you think took him to Saudi Arabia then? Was it
money and love?
Money and love.
Yeah, but I think Steven Gerrard turning around and saying, I'm here. And look, I said this before, Gerrard's the due diligence. Steven Gerrard, Liverpool's greatest ever captain, midfielder, whatever you want to say, is over there and saying, I want you to come over and help me. Well, Gerrard's already over there. There must be something to it if Gerrard's decided to go and do that. Again, I'm saying I 100% would. I'd probably look a little deeper at like the playing squad, for example,
where they're living.
All of the above. But you know, it's just the thing. Jordan, he's just a footballer. He's ended up having a brilliant career.
I think the thing that annoys me the most about all of this, right, and I get why people get involved in it and stuff, like, but like, I wish we held up our politicians to the same level of scrutiny as we do our footballers, because we'd be in such a better place. And I wish our country and our government did more. And like, we're going to talk about it on the next show, aren't we, about Newcastle and PIF and all that type of stuff. Like, it shouldn't be on the fans of those football clubs to stand up for what they believe in. It should be not the government saying you can't buy a football club in our country because of what you do elsewhere. And yet we always seem to go for the low-hanging fruit. We want the people who have absolutely nothing to do with actually the regimes to be able to stand up and speak out. And even if Henderson didn't go, what good would it have done for anything? Nothing whatsoever. So you've got to have people who are in power, maybe, just maybe, democratically elected governments, to be able to do this for us and stand up on these issues.
Yeah, it's right though. It's bollocks, but it's easier to just get for Twitter fume to have some quotes that you can quote retweet and stare up, isn't it? Ultimately, I do think the people who end up worse out of this is people in the LGBT community who have lost a very public ally and have ended up in a situation, as we said, where I just don't. It's going to be so much harder for anyone else to stand up in that space now as a result, because again, you're an agent who literally exists to make money off those players. What are you going to be saying? Are you going to be telling your footballer to be a big vocal advocate for stuff? Are you going to say, keep your mouth shut, speak out when your career's over, speak out all you want, but while you're in it, it's bad. I think it sets us back more than it really anyone thought it would do. But again, this is the problem when we make Jordan Henderson, let's face it, a really good footballer by the standards of global levels, but far from like a top 5% of footballers in actual active football, is somehow this leading, shining like figure that's supposed to represent all of these values and all that kind of stuff. As it turns out, he's just a fella.
I think because there's so little, representation or support, I think when someone comes out like that, which is why it probably hurts that community even more, because like we've mentioned, Maddie, Sadio Mane, Fabinho, none of them ever gave their political stance or ever spoke about their beliefs.
Can we sorry, Claire, just to cut in, because I know people say it's not a political stance, by the way.
No, it's not.
It's not a political stance to be pro or to be pro LGBT rights. By the way, carry on.
Which is why I'm extremely disappointed in the culture quote that he used, saying it's their culture to believe this, so I have to. No, they want to kill people because they're this. That's not culture. But back to Jordan Henderson, because he was so outspoken on it, and people of that community, they grab and latch on to these people are actually supporting them, they're representing them, and to see money just be the overriding factor and that everyone has a price, it is, I can only imagine how let down they are, and I can totally understand that.
Yeah, let's just say this is the worst thing. We go on about what a big advocate he was. He wrote something in his programme notes and he wore some coloured laces and armbands. When you really see it written out and he did it in the article, it's like, he's not done that much, has he? You know what I mean? And that's the sad thing. The real sad thing about it. It wasn't even like I said it to you, but like it's not like it wouldn't have been like go back to the 60s and Martin Luther King decides to give up on all his morals. You know what I mean? It's just a fella who seemed to have a half decent moral compass, and as it turns out, it's not quite as straight as we'd all thought it was. Anyway, pathetic that it's caused that much conversation. It's the most probably interested anyone's been in Jordan Henderson outside of his trophy lifts, which is a bit of a fucking shame, really, because what a servant he was to Liverpool, and it's mad that. That's the upsetting thing for me, is like what a brilliant that his career should be tarnished. Like, I'm annoyed that Gerrard fell over and people talk about Gerrard's career like that Jordan Henderson made a mad, ultimately business decision for how to continue his career, and it means that we don't get to have a free conversation. The conversations about Jordan Henderson shouldn't be about whether you thought he was shit or whether you thought he was good, like it's been for his entire career, instead of having to he's got held up as this sort of negative poster child moving forward.
You know what grinds my gears about it all, right? That loads of people now, their aim is to go over there and party, by the way. And it's the same people who are giving everyone shit on Twitter. You know, go to that area of the world and party and post on Instagram and Twitter and TikTok about and all this. Like, it's mad how hypocritical people are of someone who is supposed to be hypocritical as well. Like, it is crazy. Like, loads of people I know want to go to that area of the world to party in those areas of the world. It's mad.
Yeah, well, just kind of moving it sideways a bit onto the Salah stuff, because obviously we don't know he's staying, at least for now. What I thought was interesting, Dan, that came out the back of this was a few journalists talking about, I think it was Chris Williams maybe, about how much briefing was going on to Saudi favourable journalists or whatever, to try and create more of this Salah story than perhaps there was going on.
Oh yeah, there was loads of that. I think we all kind of had an inclination that was going on, because some of them were so steadfast in the fact that it was going to happen. Obviously, some over here, we've seen Jan Algefortov as well, and his belief and his tweets, and obviously we've seen the idiot that is Richard Keys. We've all seen those quotes as well, and that's from over there.
Not for years, thankfully.
Yeah, thankfully not. Yeah, we don't see as much of him now, but it's actually quite nice seeing him be so tragically wrong on the Salah stuff last week. That was
the only time you ever see him. You actually see him fairly regularly.
Yeah. There's the Everton one as well, wasn't it? Yeah, so yeah, but you're right. But it was. It's quite disappointing. I think Chris Williams, you are right, it definitely was him. He was almost disappointed by sort of how many of his colleagues and some of his peers were so easily influenced and were sort of bought, because some of these journalists, you see, were like quite reputable. You kind of take what they're saying at face value and you believe them, and yet the fact that they can be led astray like this and just say stuff for the sake of the PR machine, essentially, and sort of to drive the. We were here deadline day, and how much of it was surrounded by the Salah Saudi stuff. It was constant, and you do wonder how much of that is truth and how much of that is just getting the name out there. And it turns out that it might have been a bit 50-50, but it's interesting because I spoke to a Saudi-based journalist last week, actually, on one of our Plus shows, and he said something very similar. It was very similar out there, and a lot of the Etihad fans were left like really angry because all of their trusted pundits and their trusted journalists have been saying for a week or so that Salah's done, it's going to happen. So it was even in that part of the world, even in that country, where Barry was spinning the same sort of web of lies and sort of cocksuredness that it was going to be a thing. So we were kind of seeing it and going, not sure, but they were seeing it and going, oh, happy days, like, because the highest people in their media world were saying, yeah, Salah's coming, don't worry about it. And then when it didn't, they were all left fuming. So it's been, I mean, it's caused a lot of controversy, hasn't it, this Saudi stuff this summer. But I think the Salah saga has probably been the most fascinating one to watch, because he's such a high-profile player for them. But the fact that they have been influencing journalists and pundits alike is a really interesting dynamic.
Yeah, it's I mean, Chloe, it's to be expected, and of course we've seen a path well trodden over the summer. Really, obviously Mbappe turned the move down, but he's pretty much been the only one, and understandably so, because he's got so much of his career.
Not just as well.
Okay, yeah, I didn't. But the Salah stuff, it's just obvious. I think everyone knows he's probably going to end up there at some point. We've seen Liverpool already deal on Fabinho and Henderson, and then when you start to talk about, you know, sums of money plus what everyone knows about Liverpool's ownership and how much money is required by the club and all that kind of stuff, it did seem. It was so plausible that Salah would accept, but it just meant we were all far more on edge for far longer than we should have been, because again, it comes down to it. James Pearce put the tweet out when the first bid came out, like, that's it, Liverpool have said no, and they consider the matter closed, but no one truly believed that, because there was so much smoke, and you presume there must be fire.
Yeah, and also we know that they've just come to Liverpool on deadline day, whopped a 150 mil bid down for, you know, one of the best players in the world. They don't care who you are, they come, they'll put whatever on the table. And I think everyone was scared that they'd put a price on the table where FSG would turn around and say, my God, we're not going to get that next year. Let's go for it. I think the other thing was Fabrizio Romano, since, you know, the transfer window's ended, has came out and said he gets messages from players, from agents saying, oh, could you put this out for me? Oh, could you do this for me? So obviously they've done a bit of that with all of their journalists. And the journalists, whether they get paid off or whatever, have put it out. Sky Sports ran with it because there was absolutely nothing else interesting on deadline day. And also, he is obviously going to be the main target for them. He's in peak condition at his age. He's still one of the greatest in the world. I think we all know he'll end up there next season, but it was just completely blown out of proportion. It had you on edge for a couple of days because there was rumours of 175, then it went up to 200 mil before this 175 came in.
And because we've all got a figure in our heads.
Yes.
And when it starts to get close to that, you're thinking, oh, God.
If they had another 50 on there, we're in trouble. Yeah. But thankfully that didn't happen, and it just goes to show that... you know, transfer windows very much it's like Chinese whispers in terms of someone will say something, someone will make it even bigger, it'll go on, someone else will add bits to it, and in the end a lot of it isn't true.
Yeah, it's going to carry on. There's no way we escape this, is there, Chris? And just the idea is, you know, eventually Liverpool will deal, and hopefully they get the deal that kind of matters to them. But it's interesting because what we don't know is we've seen all these deals led by the players, and that's the thing we'll never be truly clued in on, is because that was a lot of the talk was like, well, Salah's kind of said he'll have the conversations with them or whatever, and like, well, obviously he's going to listen to, if someone says would you be interested in hearing maybe what I might be prepared to pay? Yeah, he's not going to say no. But yeah, you know, this is the modern way the transfers are done now, and it means that there is actually no way to ever truly shut these things down.
No, it's interesting actually, because I think, you know, we mentioned a couple of players that have sort of turned them down. I imagine there'll be loads more that just won't have made the news.
I think Kevin De Bruyne did as well, came out over the weekend. Kevin De Bruyne and somebody else who a name escapes me, but De Bruyne was one who I've also rejected. Yeah.
And was that Rodri?
No, he's spoken about it, but it wasn't rejected. I'll find out later.
He definitely, you know, there'll be loads of players, like that who've just, was it Lewandowski, was it? Yeah. And you might find out in the fullness of time, but it's not in their best interest to spin that yarn, is it, in the news? They don't want people rejecting them, they only want the people who've gone there, and it makes feel like nobody can turn them down, but players can turn them down when they want to, can't they? The Salah stuff, the big thing for me is, I never got the impression that it was just about money for him, and that being said, I never got the impression it was just about money for Jordan as well. Now the difference there between those two players is, I think one of those two players has the ability to continue to win things for a few more years, and I don't think Jordan did in the first team of a side week in, week out. There's a difference there, you know what I mean? He could be part of a squad that goes and wins trophies, definitely. He ain't going to be the main man in the side for the next 3 years like Salah can be.
Yeah.
So I think his legacy is a footballing legacy that he's trying to carve out, Salah. And I think that, you know, that might be wrong. It might be that after this season it ends up going and stuff like that. But I think you've got to know your body yourself as well, haven't you? I think the greats in sports all know. I mean, over the weekend, Novak Djokovic wins the US Open and says, I feel good, I'm going to continue to go. And you worry at like what number he's going to stop at. But then you know with Steven Gerrard that I think that last season for us, he kind of realised that like he can't do it to the level that he was.
I'm not playing the games and I can't walk into the manager's office anymore and say I'm good to go for 50 games a season, because it's not the case.
And that when you are an absolute alpha sort of football player must be so hard when you've been at the absolute peak of your sport for the best part of 20 years and you're watching lads run around for Southampton who are, you know, faster than you, stronger than you, can pass you off the park now, and you must just feel terrible. And at that point you take a bow and you go somewhere where you think you can make an impact.
Yeah.
And I don't think Salah's anywhere close to being there yet.
Yeah, and again, it comes back to the project, doesn't it? It's like, what does the Saudi League look like next summer? Who are the next? Because if, you know, this was like effectively year zero. Well, year zero was bringing Ronaldo in, wasn't it? This was the first summer of them going at it, and I think all of us were taken aback by the levels. We're going to be doing this on the Biased Football podcast on Redmen Plus afterwards in a bit more depth. But, you know, if there's another raft of, you know, good level footballers, all of a sudden, you know, the percentage of those players in those 11s starts to get past the tipping point where you've got 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 players of a good enough standard, and the facilities start to get there. Then it becomes more of a case. Whereas Salah's lucky, he's such a machine that I don't see that offer's never going to not be on the table. I think the question comes for Liverpool is, what's the crossover point where you're going to get the maximum value from the player and in the resale value at some point? But yeah, interesting to see what comes of that next, really. Right, we may as well continue the tradition of strange cultural problems and people getting really angry at people and talk about the refereeing in this country. Van Dijk has his ban extended. He's accepted it. He's admitted that he's apologised. Chloe, if we're going down this path of like it's like we've now got to be super respectful to referees and no one's allowed to, like, you know, say anything horrible to them, which I'm not against, by the way.
Can we make them up though?
Yeah.
Fine. Yeah, exactly. Which I've said it would be the solution to the problem. Footballers would stop swearing at referees if it started to hamper their brand deals, because you could hear them, you know, effing and jeffing constantly on Sunday football. If other footballers are going to get these kind of bans throughout the season, then this is absolutely fair. But I honestly would not be shocked if no one else got a ban like this, and that's the most annoying part about the Van Dijk situation.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, look, there's been, I mean, I know the rules changed this season, but there was many things last season that, you know, Bruno Fernandes, you know, pushing a linesman. There's like, I cannot imagine the amount of people who surround the ref last season. Liverpool are one of them, where I've always turned around. I mean, do exactly what the rest of them do and go and hound him then, because if everyone else does it, you should be able to do it. They've used a very high-profile player in Virgil van Dijk, a very big football club. And look, if they continue to clamp down on it, and you know, this happens every week, because it should happen every week, because we watch football, we see what happens. Then I'm okay with it, you know, same, but there never is, because if they can't get decisions right that they can look at on replay 10 different times, they're not going to continue to ban every single person that swears. I'd like to know exactly what Virgil said. Did he just say that the decision was an effing joke? Because if so, I don't see what is wrong with that. I'm okay with that. It's not, if he's not personally attacked you, he's just said that's an effing joke, then I'm okay with that, because I can imagine loads of footballers do that with every decision, whether there's no booking here or no foul here, or there is a foul and you've hardly touched them. So yeah, it'll be interesting, but they have picked a big stature football team and a big player to clamp down. It will not continue, because there'll be too many people.
If you're going to get it for something, what word would you want to use?
It's not that, is it? It's more deeper than that. But then again,
you want to be more direct
games
to his face.
Yeah, I don't want to personally attack him.
Yeah.
It's like when Pepe Reina got sent off for lightly stroking Ian Robin's neck, and you just deck him. Yeah. If you knew you were getting a red card,
and you're getting a fine.
Sander Westerveld and Fanny Jeffers.
But was it was $100,000 he got fined for it?
And if it was Paul Tierney, what would be the word to use?
I've said a lot of bad words on this show, but I'm not sure I could say a word that I call Paul Tierney on this show.
Yeah. It's just mad, isn't it? And again, I think the comparing stuff to previous seasons is just a way to stoke up more anger around it, to go, well, this happened last year and this happened last year. And I know, but they were being nowhere near as protective of referees in those previous years. This is what they're going for. Mm-hmm. But again, it's like anything, is this going to carry on? Because we said about the Newcastle game, like Trent got booked for throwing the ball away. I'm sorry, but he threw the ball back onto the pitch, by the way. Probably to take a quick free kick because he felt he'd just been fouled by Anthony Gordon. But then, you get people booked for miming yellow cards, and I saw that happen in that game. Saw Anthony Gordon kick the ball away in that game. These are all
this is something that the Premier League do at the start of every season.
Yeah.
They go 4 or 5 games where they go, right, this is what we're going to make a big deal out of. After the 5th or 6th game, they've made an example of somebody, and it just drops off.
The added time will probably be the same.
Do you remember that season where they were going at everyone in the penalty area?
Mike Skirtle
got Martin
Skirtle.
He said Mike Dean. Martin Skirtle got done about 3 times near the beginning of the season, and nothing happened to any other team throughout the end of it. This is just what they do. They go, right, okay, we're going to go really hard. It's going to be against Liverpool, and then we're going to forget it for the rest of the season for every team.
Well, do you remember Everton? One of their strikers, I can't remember who it was now, he got done retrospectively for diving. And he's the only one to this day to ever be done for it because they just binned it off straight away. He did dive on the edge of the box, and they'll know. Toffee lads will know.
It's on the wall. It's right in the wall.
It's the big book of Everton injustices.
Yeah, exactly. I remember that. It must be a Merseyside thing, and they did ban him. I think it was like 2 games retrospectively for diving. He said, that's it. That's what we're going to do now. We've set a precedent. That's us forever, and it's never happened since. And it just goes to show. It's
just a fertile breeding ground for conspiracy theory, because my honest take was the second Van Dijk got sent off, there's no way that's getting overturned. Why?
It was red card.
Because they overturned McAllister the week before, and I can't see the referees admitting twice in 2 weeks that they got it wrong. And I think that's why they were very quick to get the audio out there for that one, to make everyone see, hang on a second, this is what's been done. And most people who listened to it went, okay, fair enough, go on, Claire.
It's the one with Onana where they've just basically told you out loud exactly why it should be a foul and a penalty. Yeah. And he goes, so I've seen this. He jumps and he just clatters into the man. He's got none of the ball there. Okay, I'm happy to give not a foul. Okay.
It's late. Are you sure? It's late, it's clumsy. It's in the penalty area. Play on.
It's like, so I've got 2 apples and you've got 2 apples, and then so I go 1, 2, 3, 4. The answer is 5. And you go, what? You just heard you work it out. Yeah. Brilliant.
There was the one where it's offside, and they're like and ahhing at first. Yeah, he's definitely offside. He's not in the keeper's line, but he does move his foot towards the ball here, I wonder if that's is that an attempt? No, because he's moved it after the ball's gone. No, he just had shit reactions.
He's slow, mate.
Yeah, he was very slow. And it's just mad how they come to these conclusions. And that's why these things, if they're put into place, are perfect, as long as the referees who are putting them into place are actually decent at their jobs in the rest of the football pitch, but they're not.
The more rules you create, the more gaps there are between the rules, and therefore the more people it doesn't apply to, the more exceptions, and then the more rules you have to create to make exceptions for the exceptions, and then the more few and stuff like that. We're trying to create this thing in football where it's like a catch-all where we can solve all the problems in a sport that is basically impossible to do it. We're bringing technology in. It doesn't cover it because, again, VAR is another bunch of people with subjective decisions.
No, the VAR stuff, they've got that completely right. Remember, we do not want to be sat here week in, week out talking about subjective decisions anymore. Okay, they've fixed that, haven't they? We're not anymore.
I said this fucking 2 years ago. I said we're on a pathway to someone saying it's all right because VAR decisions level themselves out throughout the season. It's like, no! That's what we had before. Just fucking sack it off. So is it just because the referees just want to get more of their mates in work?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Is that what it is? More jobs for referees, more jobs for the boys.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Oh my God, horrendous. So anyway, a ban for Verge. Mercifully, Liverpool. I've got loads of defenders who never get injured, so I'm sure we'll be fine to cope without him for another game. Okay, we're going to take a short break. When we return, we're going to be talking about what comes next post international break for the mighty Reds, the games, and how we're feeling about all that. See you in a sec. Hey, what's happening? Our brand new book, Bobby Firmino, Best in the World, is available to order right now. There is a normal edition and an author-signed edition on redmenmerch.com. Fill your boots with incredible stories of a Kop icon, a season-by-season guide to Bobby Firmino's time on Merseyside with unique and incredible photographs from the archive, stats, unique artwork by brilliant Liverpool artists, features, quotes, and a whole lot more beside. If you are a Bobby Firmino fan or someone in your life is a huge Bobby Firmino fan, it is the perfect gift for you or for them. It is A4 size, premium format, and very limited edition. Get yours right now by heading to redmenmerch.com. Hey, yes, welcome back. Fill your boots over on redmenmerch.com if you haven't done so already. Some amazing stuff to keep you looking cool as we head from summer, those last few warm days, into those autumnal weather that Chloe's clearly dressed for with your earth tones.
I can't wait to wear hoodies again.
It's only been like 5 days.
Yeah. In fact, I did bring a jacket down in case I was cold here as well.
Right.
I'm showing it as
Brilliant
well.
true story. It's sweltering in here as well.
Yeah, it is. Right, okay, let's go through it then. Liverpool.
My ears are filling up with sweat and she's bringing jackets down.
Just in case.
Hey, it was cold outside.
Yeah.
Last winter.
Right, let's go through Liverpool's upcoming fixtures then. Obviously, we know we beat Villa before the break. Up on Saturday, the 12:30 kickoff in Wolverhampton. Liverpool take on Wolves. We then got Lask in the Europa League. West Ham at home. Then Leicester City at home in the EFL Cup third round, which another year I'd totally forgotten about that being a thing. Away to Tottenham Hotspur on the 30th of September. Then we've got Union St Gilloise visiting us at Anfield for the 8 o'clock kickoff on the 5th. Brighton and Hove Albion away from home before the next international break. Dan, how are we feeling about that? Anything stand out to you?
Excited, really, to be honest with you. Yeah, I really am. Obviously, the start of the season that we've had has filled me with much more optimism about what's to come. The fact we haven't even seen Van Gravenberch introduced into this yet as well is really something to get very excited about, in my opinion. But in terms of fixtures, I mean, the Brighton game you just mentioned there, that one's probably the most I mean, Tottenham as well, obviously the way they've started the season is really positive, but I think it's actually quite a favourable set of fixtures, and it's easy to say that, but when they come thick and fast like this, in years gone by, sort of taking last season in particular out of the equation, that suits us. And we look at little spells in the season and go, well, that looks tricky, and all of a sudden we emerge from it smelling the roses, and you go, okay, sound, because that's what Klopp historically has got us sort of geared up towards, and everything's been sort of pre-planned towards runs of fixtures like this one and like the ones we're going to see the back end of this year as well, towards Christmas obviously. So I'm really optimistic about what we're capable of, certainly in this next little block, because I've always said this, Liverpool under Klopp are at their best when these games keep happening. Playing every 3 days suits us down to the ground when we're playing well.
Yeah. Chloe, anything in there that you thought, I mean, I'm a little apprehensive about just a couple of runs of games in there, particularly the back end one, but anything stood out to you?
Spurs will be a good test because, I think they've shocked a lot of people. James Maddison's been an incredible signing for them. I think, I don't know about you, but I think they're overachieving at this moment. I did not expect them to do that, especially with the fact that they had Richarlison up front and he's crying on benches over in Brazil because he can't even stay on the pitch. So that'll be a good test because by then you'll know if this is just it's a start of the season. Nothing's tried to phase Spurs just yet, even if they have had Manchester United. Manchester United were crap at that moment. So by the time that we face them, you'll know if they're actually a really good side or if there was just a bounce to the start of the season and the new players coming in. So I think that'll be a really good test. And Brighton away, oh my God, that last season was an absolute nightmare every single time we faced them. And that'll be an incredible test as well, especially with their additions. Ansu Fati, we haven't even seen what he's going to be like, but I can only imagine he's going to be absolutely thunderous for them. So there's 2 really testing games towards the end. I'm happy that the game that, and I don't, let me touch wood. Virgil's out of Wolves, and Wolves at this moment in time aren't doing good. I can deal with that. But Liverpool will need to be lucky with some injuries for that run of games, which is the big problem for me. But just give me Szoboszlai back, please, because I've been watching him in international break and he looks incredible no matter what team he's playing for.
I'm looking forward to the answers that we're going to get to the questions that the first sort of 4 games of the season have thrown up. Yeah. So, how is Gravenberch going to fit into this side? Is McAllister going to continue to be used as a 6, or is Endo going to get in there, or is Gravenberch going to be for
Japan against Germany?
So, I mean, Hansi Flick got sacked off the back of that game as well, didn't he? Which was a bit of a nuts one. There's obviously that. Is Trent going to continue to go inside? Is Robinson going to continue to improve, playing the sort of left-back, left-sided centre-half role? What is the plan with Darwin Núñez? Is he now the 9, or is Jota going to go back, or where's Gakpo going to fit in? Is he a midfielder? Is he a striker? They're all the things that I look at those 4 games that we started the season with. I look at all the lineups that we've come out, and they're all questions, and I'm like, well, is Núñez a horses for courses? Was it because he knew that Aston Villa were going to play a high line? Because he's played Gakpo in every game up until that point, and Jota started in the 9 and all this. So that's the exciting stuff for me, is we're going to get an idea of what Jürgen thinks this Liverpool side is.
Yeah, the Europa League's just a really interesting wrinkle in all this because, 2 games a week, Liverpool should be perfectly used to that. We've got the squad that should be capable for it as well. But there's always, we forget this every time we're in the Europa League because there's a bit of it's the Europa League. It's the second tier European competition. Therefore, it'll be piss. And it tends to, you tend to do all right in it, but it's never quite as straightforward as you always think it is, because what the problem with being Liverpool in these is that it's the biggest game in every one of these players' careers who come up against you.
Well, you just have to look at the celebrations on the day when they drew Liverpool. Saint-Gilloise was the one, wasn't it?
Yeah. And you saw, we went again. Obviously, it was Champions League, but we went to Red Star Belgrade away, and that was they treated that like it was a European Cup semi-final. There was no more. There'd have been no more hostility if it was that. I think back to the coach greetings we've given to Roma and Man City and Barcelona and all that kind of stuff. They were just, it was horrible, it was brutal, it was nasty, it was spitting and biting and throwing stuff and all that kind of stuff. It was horrible, but that was it. It was a real opportunity for them to kind of say, well, we won a European Cup, it's a big game for us, we're a big team, it's a chance to put our names back on the map. I'm not saying that I don't know anything about Union St. Gilloise. My time for research will come in due course on that, but again, hopefully it's a bit more of like, oh, isn't it nice for playing Liverpool, clapping everyone on, Liverpool, thanks so much for coming. But it doesn't always go that way. And the additional thing, Chris, is for me, it's that back end of that run. It's Tottenham away, then we've got Unison Gilwars at home, and then Brighton away in that spell. And that's the closest thing we've got to that. We have one of them every year. Now, it's normally we play Man City on the back of playing some sort of Champions League game.
Away normally.
Yeah. But that's an interesting test to have it almost be reversed, where the league fixtures are more important than the
I think he approaches the group stages of the Europa in the same way as he's approached the Champions League, to be honest, where I think it's the second team are going to be going out there. You might see Bendo get minutes, you might see Thiago sort of captain that side if he's fit and available, but I think the focus, as you sort of allude to there, is the Premier League games. And we've historically done really well against Tottenham, at their place, at our place, wherever. So it's going to be a big test of where they are mentally as a team, because although Harry Kane's not there and they've brought in a few new lads, you do find that when you've got a problem with a side, it doesn't matter who's in charge and it doesn't matter who the players are. Ask Everton. They've had it with us for years and years now, haven't they? So I think we'll be too good for Tottenham, and I am quite bored of everybody big and Brighton up already, right? To throw out a random shout, like the way that words like incredible and stuff get thrown around when we're talking about a team that we finished higher than when we were shit last season, like, is really great. Now they are a good side. Yeah. They're not a great side. Yeah. They're a good side with a good manager and good players, as far as I see it at the moment. Yeah. But I think Liverpool are a better side.
Well, that's the big one, because there's a clear win. If we're looking at how Liverpool construct the season, Dan, there's 0 points from that fixture last season away at Brighton. And it was probably up there. That and Wolves are probably the two darkest moments of the season in terms of that, where it all kind of felt like it was not just bad, it was never going to kind of recover. If you're going to chart your way to getting more points this season and being more competitive, then Brighton, because Chris is right. Look, they're a fabulous little team. Huge. But they've got our number. And they've actually given us some good games in recent years. That's going to be the big test for how far Liverpool have changed this year.
Yeah, massively so, yeah. And I think it started with us and them in the Anfield game. Actually, we went 2-0 up, didn't we? And they pegged us back to 2-2, yeah. And then obviously the FA Cup game as well at their place to give us a good hiding in. So they definitely will be going into that game full of confidence and thinking they can beat us. So that will be a test of where we're at as well as them, I think. We were sort of speaking about Tottenham, and I agree with Chris in terms of, I don't think Tottenham are the real deal just yet. I think they will drop off, and sort of us going there might be the start of that potentially for them. And sort of there's levels to this game, lads. You stay in your lane a little bit. But with Brighton, we're better than Brighton. I think a lot of the credit that goes towards Brighton is more the fact of the way they do it and how they just unearth these lads from South America and then sell them for 100 million more a little bit later on. So yeah, I think that's a lot of the credit for them. But in terms of where we're at, we just have to look at those games like we did in the past. And last season was the outlier in terms of that. We went into them, the Wolves one you mentioned, broken as a football team essentially. We would go into every single away day, no matter where it was, and thinking, if we don't get the rub of the green in the first 10-15, we're done here. And that's how it turned out almost every single time. So we need to be going into these games now with our new look squad and our sort of rejuvenated lads and say, no, we're going to come here and we're going to dictate terms and we're going to win the game. And Brighton will be no different to that, in my opinion. But it's fascinating, like Chris said, in terms of there are a few questions, really exciting questions, really positive, fun questions to be having, sort of debating where lads are going to fit in and stuff like that. And I wonder with the inverted stuff, like, to me now it looks as though you can't do that, and Chris will know better than I will on it, you can't do that system if everything isn't perfect. That's how it seems. When you go down to 10 men, that system's gone. When you haven't got the ball, that system's gone. Your team has to be nailed on perfect for Trent to be able to go into midfield. So if we do start seeing more and more of that again means things are going pretty well.
And we don't even know where Trent's at, do we? We imagine he's missing the Wolves game, thinking
I would have
about
thought
it as
so.
well.
Well, there's going to be possibly Quantum and Matip at centre-half if you've got Gomez at right-back.
Yeah, there's a possibility. Or again, there's other things you can kind of do. but it's none of them feel totally ideal for what Liverpool are doing, because the only other time we've seen Trent not do it, we've seen Conor Bradley do it, who's also injured, of course, and it's the flip the inversion where that was then putting Tsimikas in, which was no Robertson in the team. So it is whether we just go a bit more traditional. But Liverpool are going to have a good season. They're going to need flexibility, and that comes in a number of forms. That comes in formation, but also variations on the formation, and the inversion thing. That was what was really interesting about the last week. Certainly was Trent not doing it, not being as advanced, quarterbacking it more, because it just asked different questions of what their team was going to do. Hopefully we've reached the stage where we've got the flexibility in the players, and there's been enough time on the training ground to be able to give us a little bit more of, like, not being like, this is now the new formation, let's just smash this at the opponents and hope that it works, because that was what undid Brendan Rodgers. Ultimately, you know, he was quite obviously a good coach, but he had his new way of playing. He moved to 3 at the back and it worked for a bit. And then eventually it's the element of surprise that you're losing people clock onto you. When that happens, you've got to know your system. You've got to know yourself inside and out. And this thing that Pep wrote about in his book, Pep Blinders, of like sorting it out on the pitch yourselves. That's what I want to know. I want to know whether this is all like it's one way of working, or, you know, are the players intelligent enough to be able to pick it up. That Wolves game is actually, we've mentioned Brighton, Chloe, but obviously we touched upon this as well. It's another one. We were abject at Wolves. I'm actually kind of glad we've got that first, because that's actually another one that you can kind of pin on the board a little bit to get you up and running with. They're not as good as Brighton, and if we can go there even without Trent and go and get some sort of thing, it's a great way to kick this little run off positively.
Yeah, it is, and also, you know, we know how much we also hate 12:30 kickoffs. So, and even this season, look, we've not started games perfectly. Bournemouth scored 2 in the space of 2 minutes. Luckily, one of them was offside. We still have fragility from things of last season, with the high line and things, where if teams do sort us out, it is a problem for us. But it's about adapting in the game. Wolves will hopefully be one of those where we can show that we can do it no matter the personnel on the football pitch. We don't need, you know, Trent Alexander-Arnold, our best passer of a football, maybe not after Dominic Szoboszlai passed the other day. But
it was very judiciously cut before the guy got that under control, by the way, before we give him too much credit on that.
But if we can go and show that, you know, we can change it up, not always need the big players, because it seems like this system that we've changed to is just made around Trent. It is basically, you're going to be it for the next 10 years. How do we get you in the best place on the pitch, and what do we do around you? And yeah, it'll also be good, because look how many options that we have there. We've mentioned Ryan Gravenberch. I am so excited to see where he plays, what his position is. I'm so excited to see whether Darwin Núñez starts. What happens with Luis Diaz? What happens, you know, with the Diogo Jota, Cody Gakpo? Does he go back to an 8? What do we do with McAllister? There's so many boss questions there. And, you know, if there's once again, don't jinx it, but if there's a team where you can maybe test the waters out a bit, it might be Wolves. But you need to make sure that in the Premier League you're on it and you're concentrated, because any football team in the Premier League can shock you.
Where's Canate up to with his injury?
I've not heard
I don't think
anything.
he's playing the weekend.
I heard a rumour that he'd be back, but I've not heard anything specifically on that. There's no need to rush him unless there's a major problem with the lads that we've mentioned already, because we talked about, you hinted at it the other, and it was mentioned in the comments actually. Let me see if I can grab up the, I mean, it wasn't specifically him saying this, but Lee Wizkid in the comments saying Stefan will be trained up as Trent's understudy ultimately, something I mentioned at the start of the summer. There might be something in that. You know, you don't want to make wild changes, because Gomez can come in and do a right back job, but I do want him inverted. He'll do it if he's asked, and he is confident on the ball, and I'm not sure anyone necessarily said John Stones would have been a brilliant candidate for it a year or so ago, but I wonder whether there might be something in that. Depends on Canate, how long it's going to take Canate to get back. I wouldn't be looking to rely on more of our centre-halves playing football if I thought he wasn't coming back anytime soon. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be looking to play 3 centre-halves a game.
I think in the future, certainly, Bajcetic could be able to do it and stuff, but he had the option to bring Bajcetic on in the last game, but he decided to move Joe Gomez over to the right when Trent got injured. I think that's probably the safest option. Now, it might be different when you've got a couple of weeks to plan for it and Bajcetic hasn't gone anywhere.
Yeah.
So, but I think the likelihood is that it just sticks with Gomez and Quansah comes in.
So he played with Spain on 21s the other day. He played centre-back for Spain on 21s the other day.
Yeah.
Funnily enough. It's actually a good thing, because he's played some football now, which he
Yeah.
hasn't done prior to that this
I
season.
wonder whether, we just don't know what the deal is with him, because we've clearly been very protective of him. It's kind of surprising, it goes back to the McAllister starting in the 6. We technically had 2 of the lads who are more built for that role in the Villa game who didn't start it. We chose McAllister instead, so it is interesting to see what we do with that. And Bajcetic mentioned I don't know where it was interviewed, but I saw the quotes of him saying, like, I'll get me game at 6, but I think I'll get games elsewhere as well. And I think immediately you think, well, he played a bit of 8 for us, but I'm not sure how much 8 he'll play for us, because we've got loads of lads who play there all of a sudden. So that's the one for me. That it could be that, because that goes back to your questions thing, and Trent's not going to play 60 games playing in that position. Who is doing it in the Europa League? And it goes back to where's your depth? Do you want to move a centre half out to right back, given again the injury issues? If you get reliant on Gomez as a right back and then he gets injured playing at right back, well, then you've lost a centre half covering the doing it. Again, questions with no answers. Marley Clark here says Quansah will be the next generational talent. I feel him becoming a new Trent type lad. Go ahead, Marley. I'm here for the glass half full approach to everything. But I want to see more of Quansah. I just want to I want to get more of a sense of what he is. I was pleasantly surprised, Chloe, by Reece Williams and what he was able to achieve, but it always felt like he was lacking something. Pace was what he was lacking ultimately, and we saw it with Phillips as well.
So true.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't really know how to judge Quansah because we've not seen enough of him. But shape-wise, he looks like he's got all the things that you might need, but we can't know until he plays footy more.
Yeah, I think it was Newcastle. He obviously comes on in that game, and I think we're all dead shocked. In fact, his pass inside to maybe Salah, who flicks it round the corner, to Jota, who tries to put it in behind to Núñez. That ball inside is so intelligent, and I would not expect that from a teenager. I'd have expected him to just lay it out wide to Trent and say, yeah, Trent, you're in space, have that. But he chose, the option that was a risk reward, but it worked out, and I like that. And since he came in, I've seen, as of yet, I've not seen him do anything that's been horrific. I've seen him. He stands up tall. He wins headers. He's very physical, but also his awareness. I remember Aston Villa. He comes on in that game, and we've penned them in, but a ball comes up, and I think it's like Diaby one-on-one with him all sort of impressing him, and into the crap in the bed, he just takes a touch, lays it off quickly to Robertson, and we're away again. His composure there for a young lad, and yet we've only seen sample sizes, but so far it looks brilliant. He looks like he could be a unit. Do I think he's going to be Trent? No. Do I think he could be more like Virgil van Dijk or Konate? Yes, because he's an out-and-out centre-back. But it's just another option, because we keep talking about this Robertson situation on the left-hand side, and how much will it be in a couple of years' time to go and replace him? If you've built Quansah up with a decent amount of games experience, and he looks like he could be the real deal, and you've shifted, obviously, when I've seen him, he played the right against Newcastle, and then he played the left, I think, against Villa. If you can mould him into something, there's 40-50 mil that you can save on a player in several years' time.
It's whether he's a place card until you go out, because we couldn't get Colwill, and we know what, and you couldn't get Nketiah and all those kind of stuff. And is it he just there because he's the broad shape of what you're going for? I say, like Phillips and Reece Williams in that regard, is that if you have to play them, he's fine. But it has been encouraging that we have chosen to use him. What we could have shifted some other bits and pieces around. As mentioned, you could keep Gomez at centre half, and you could put someone else in there. Could have put Tsimikas in, all those kind of stuff.
You could have kept Nat Phillips as well.
That's what I was going to say.
You could have kept him around. They'd be trusted Quansah again, haven't you, like you say?
The addition to that is, would Phillips have got a game in the games Quansah's got?
Almost certainly not.
Exactly, because we've seen that for the last 2 years. The Phillips doesn't get brought on in those situations.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think, obviously, couple that with the fact that he let Phillips go and then Quansah starts getting used, you've got to think there is confidence in this lad.
Definitely. Leighton Page is back on the Bajcetic stuff. Says Bajcetic has been a centre back for most of his youth career. He can be a good Trent understudy and should be comfortable in Burton. Again, yeah, we'll see. That Europa League stuff, I think we're going to take that first game very seriously, and by very seriously I mean bear in mind we started Divock Origi against AC Milan first Champions League group game at Anfield, and everyone was like, what? But there's something similar to that, whereas we could legitimately make probably like 4 changes, and you're still at a really good level of a side for that. But I think a lot of us have got this idea of like, well, that's Doak's competition, that's Quansah's competition, and that's Bajcetic's competition, and Harvey Elliott and Curtis Jones. Be wild, you know. We might, if you just change the full.
I'm just there nodding along to all of them. I'm like, yeah, that's fine for me.
Well, exactly. I
believe that's right.
Kelleher, yeah.
I'm not sure about Kelleher.
I think Kelleher, you've got to.
Yeah. Especially
the
noise. Yeah, with the noise in the summer about him going, I think a conversation might have been had there. We'll give you Europa.
Fuming if he doesn't play.
Yeah. I'd be more 8-9 changes.
Are you reckoning then that he goes? Like, if Liverpool go the whole way, it's Kelleher's competition?
No, I'd put Alisson back in for the final, but Jürgen wouldn't.
I'd give it Kelleher the whole way.
Did it for the Was it the FA Cup, or did he not play him in the FA Cup?
He didn't give him the FA, did he? I'd give him the whole thing.
You'd give him the whole thing?
I would, yeah.
I'd be shocked if that happens.
Okay. I'd give Alisson the final, if it came down to it.
Give him the group game, see how he does. If he's crap, play Alisson. You can have the League Cup again.
Nothing says this is a great competition like giving Kelleher the League Cup and the Europa League. Is there? Shit.
If he's good enough, he's good enough. I think he's good enough.
I think he is, but
I think he's good enough.
Is the like? Okay, what are we doing it for? Is it just in case of an Alisson injury? Because I can understand that.
I think there's that, but also
but are we keeping Kelleher for the next 5
Dan
to 10
rubs
years?
Fingers together vigorously to make him more
At
valuable.
some point, you want a body of work that you can point
that
towards.
I understand.
I just don't. It's both. It's all of that. Because what happens if Alisson just falls off a cliff? I don't mean physically, like literally. I mean like, what if he just hits a level, or he decides at the end of the season, I've won everything now. I've had enough of playing at Liverpool, and you've then got to go out. You need to keep pushing Kelleher while he's your goalie, because he's your goalie until you sell him, and then you can worry about that after the fact. You know, no one else is stepping up. Pitaluga, as much as he looked amazing in those 3 saves he made from training that was all over Twitter today, amazing by the way. You know, I spoke to him in the summer. He's still young. He's still a young lad. And you know, to go from, was it Macclesfield? He was on loan, and he wasn't even fully on loan. He's still training at the AXA over, you know, throughout that. He's the next in line, and then obviously you've got Adrian's just kind of making up the numbers at this point. So I get your point. Is that if you just play your best goalie at all times, but while you've got him, if he's crap, don't play him. But if he's crap,
he's
sell him.
Not being crap. He's going to be a good goalkeeper. I think we all know that. Like,
also, Alisson has had quite a fair amount of injuries for Liverpool, more than I've probably ever seen any other goalkeeper who's played for us. So, if there was a case where I remember,
he's been here long enough to get injured as well, because he's good enough.
But that game at the start of the season, the first game at Anfield, 5 minutes in, where he just hoofed the ball and went off injured because he'd pulled something. I think you need to show that to Kelleher. You have the belief and trust in him. So if you do give him so many Europa League games,
see, I'd give him FA Cup and League Cup.
Okay,
I think
that's what I do. I would prioritise the Europa League over the FA Cup.
We'll be out of them after the first round, though.
It's his fault. Should have saved the ball.
I don't think they come around often enough, because you're right. If a disaster does happen, like it did in that Norwich game, and you suddenly, I mean, we called on Adrian. He'd been in the club for like 24 hours at that point, so that wasn't ideal. But you'd ideally have Kelleher with some football under his belt. So if Alisson does break down for whatever reason, touch wood, that never happens, of course, you can look at Kelleher and go, "You're sound. You played in the week. On you go."
I suppose the guarantee of 6 games makes sense.
I don't think Virgil van Dijk plays this competition. I don't think Alisson does, and I don't think Salah does unless he demands it, because these are all lads who are the wrong side of 30, who are your best players, who you need to get the best out of, and realistically, at some point, we talk about Salah being up for sale at some point, you might want to move them on at some point, and it would be nice, going back to the Quanta point, if you've already got their replacement at the football club, then it would be nice if they were close to ready to make that sort of step. So if you've got Doak, Quanta and Elliott, for example, who can get 6 games of football, you know, in Europe, in addition to the first round or a couple of rounds maybe of the League Cup before Christmas.
The interesting thing is what he does with the right back thing in that competition, and when Trent's fit as well, isn't it? Because, you know, we might get an idea of what the future actually holds if Trent's fit and available and he decides to not play him, because you don't want to be playing Trent in that competition really either.
Yeah, interesting point actually from Ali here, saying Virgil will play the first one because after his ban, that's a possibility as well. Right, okay, so between now, we're going to be sat here on the 9th of October, looking down the barrel of the next international break. Liverpool will have played 4 league games and 3 cup games in that time.
I won't be sitting here then, it's my daughter's birthday.
And
I have to
the royal
I've
we
just forgotten about we're all going to London on my anniversary.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Yeah. How have you done that?
I didn't remember the date.
How many years?
11.
Shocking.
Didn't
you go to a football game?
I went to
yours?
the Champions League semi-final against Villarreal with Stay on my own. That was on my wife's birthday.
Not a footy tournament, then.
No, not just the footy.
5 tournaments.
Right, sounds. Yeah, what do we think, Dan? Wolves, West Ham, Tottenham, Brighton stand between us and the next international break in the league. Lask, Leicester, and Union Saint Gilloise. What do you want that to look like?
Undefeated, without a shadow of a doubt. 9 from 9 in Europa League. Is that the 3 games? Was it Europa League?
No, 2 Europa League.
Sorry, 6 from 6 in Europa League. Then in that case, and I think we'll draw one of those last 2 away games. But other than that, we'll win the rest. I say we'll draw.
It's 10 from 12 again.
Yeah, we'll draw at Brighton. I think we'll draw at Brighton, but we'll win the others.
I think that's really solid. What do you think, Chloe?
I want to win absolutely every single game of footy, so I'm going for everything. No, because look, I'm hoping that McAllister's going back to Brighton and he's telling Liverpool, you need to effing win here because I'm going to get the piss taken out of me. So I'm hoping Liverpool show up there, put a statement down and say, everyone's going on about how boss yous are. Well, you know, here we are. We're deciding to show back up. Spurs, I'd like to have their little lovely, happy moment be murdered by us. So, yeah, no, I want to win every single game.
So I'm going to predict that it's Wolves that we draw against.
Right?
Everyone goes mental, and then we get 6 from 6 against Spurs and Brighton, and go 10 from 12. And 10 from 12 is great, by the way. It's a great start to the season. It'd be a great second part.
Draw with Wolves, draw with Lask. Everyone feels like the seasons fell apart, and then beat West Ham, Leicester, Spurs, Union, and Brighton, and end the spell.
I'd like to know the teams around, like who else faces who. Is there any massive matchups where, if I take 10 for 12, but City have faced Arsenal there, so
almost
I'm hoping someone's dropping
I'll have a look at that in a second.
Which of the games we're getting our 2 red cards in?
Yeah.
Oh,
if we get a red card a game, what 2 and 3 or 2 and 4 at this point? So yeah, expect it. Saul sent us a super chat, by the way. Said Liverpool's a mystery. Difficult to point out what works and doesn't. When we've challenged, few of us had us as favourites. When favourites, we went through an utter collapse. Clearly, we challenged this year. Oh, yeah, I'm up for that, mate. I'll have a look ahead. This is more weekend preview content, I guess, than anything else. But I'll have a look and see what the weekend fixtures are, because that will be telling. Because you're right, every time we go, what's this game? There's so many big teams now that we're in competition with.
Oh yeah, so we draw against Wolves in the 12:30, and everyone else loses, and our point looks good.
Yeah. So that's
don't
often.
See it happening.
No,
but
you've got to go and get them 3 points against Wolves and just worry about everything else after that, to be fair. But this is the point. That little run, the Spurs, Union, Brighton thing, particularly those 2 big away games in there, and I know we've got a decent record against Tottenham, whatever, but they're the ones, they're surprising. They're the ones where, are we a 4th to 6th or 3rd to 6th challenging team, or are we a team that's going for above and beyond? Because I'm not saying you have to go there and win them in style, But you find a way to win those games, I think, if because it's the 6 point nature of it, isn't it? You kind of weirdly almost afford to drop the occasional weird couple of points in mad draws against teams you wouldn't expect, because those teams always then go and pull a shock against someone else that you're not expecting. Just out of interest, the other fixtures this weekend: Man City are away at West Ham. That always causes them issues.
Okay.
Man United are at home to Brighton.
Brighton incredible, they'll batter them.
Yeah, you've always said that about Brighton, haven't you?
Haven't I?
Arsenal away at the Ev. Chelsea away at Bournemouth. That's got Chelsea absolutely cocking that up.
Yeah, that's got 9-0
Please.
Bournemouth.
Yeah, we'll see. But as I said, there's always
Is that Everton Arsenal there?
Everton Arsenal, yeah.
They haven't won a game yet, have they?
It's a win-win situation for us.
Oh,
though.
that
point
might be
they've
their first win, you know.
They beat Arsenal last year, didn't
Is
they?
that the
Yeah.
old lady?
Yeah.
It was Sean Dyche's first game in charge.
Yeah, they beat him last year.
And they were all...
Yeah. We
Really?
can see what he's
They're all
planning.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Could you see this, lads? Could you see really not trying to score goals?
Did
Well
you
done.
say boo or woo? Just woo! Oh, go on, woo! Next week, the following week, Man City have got when we play West Ham at home. By the way, City have got Forest at home.
Jesus Christ.
I've got Forest are going to cause some teams problems this year. I'm telling you. All that pace on the counter attack.
Spurs, though. Hello.
Yeah, the North London derby is the 2:00 kickoff on the Sunday, which means we're not televised that day.
Does City have a hard game at all in the next 4?
Not all
Because
season.
my
No,
God,
No
Yeah.
point this season.
No.
They play anybody.
Nope.
Chelsea Villa's that day on that Sunday as well. That's another interesting.
They've got Moss Real in the FA Cup.
Under what? 16.
Yeah.
When we play Tottenham, United have got Palace at home. Villa play Brighton at home in the early kickoff that weekend.
City,
Everton play Luton.
Jesus
There's Everton's
Christ.
first win.
Oh, that could be Luton's first win.
Fulham Chelsea. It's that little derby, whatever they call that
The
one.
Kings Road derby or something.
Yeah.
And the Harrods derby.
Bosh derby.
Man City away at Wolves.
Well,
That'll be the one. We'll draw to Wolves. And that's the worst 2 points dropped ever. And then City will go away and draw at Wolves. Well, still batter them. They battered everyone. There you go. Well, I would love to look further ahead, but the website isn't loading, so we'll leave it at that. Right. Cool. We'll wrap up there, everyone. That was good. Are we feeling good about the Reds?
Very
Great.
good. Very good.
Can't wait.
I'm really excited. It goes back to your point, Chris. There's just so many things I'm going to learn about Liverpool that I don't know. We've got a whole new footballer that hasn't kicked the ball for us yet. We get to see him play footy at some point. That's really good. Great. More of that. And Dominic Szoboszlai is just amazing. Yeah, amazing. More of him. Right. Thank you so much, everyone who's commented, who's dropped a like. If you haven't dropped a like, then I can't say thanks to you. So drop a like and then I can say thank you. Thank you. More to come from us. We've got the Bias Football podcast following on immediately pretty much from this over on redmenplus.com. We're going to be wrapping up the Saudi transfer window and we're going to talk through some of the big news around the Premier League as well. So come over there and join us for that one. Other than that, the Redmen Originals podcast will return next Monday. See you all soon. Thank you so very, very much for checking out the video. If you enjoyed it, drop a like. The season is now well underway. If you need extra Redmen content, be it podcast, videos, documentaries, interviews, and general shows, fill your boots on redmenplus.com today.